Thank you very much. It's an amazing pleasure to be here and to share the topic that I'm most passionate about, and that is everything related to flexible working, that is remote work, hybrid work, and well, the future of work. I think at this stage, you should be able to see my screen, everyone. And indeed, today's topic is how to tackle hybrid working. Hybrid working, a super hot topic these days. So companies are rushing into it. They're saying that, well, it's going to be a win-win solution, taking into account what's happened within the past few years. So my job today is to share what hybrid working really means, if you can really build a hybrid working culture, and also what are the misconceptions about hybrid working. You must know that I've worked with numerous companies from all around the world, companies that were office first. A few years ago, they have decided to go towards more flexible working models, but I've also worked with hybrid companies before they were called hybrid, and also with remote first companies that have been working like this forever, and it's been their business model. And based on that, I have the audacity to share what it means to work in a hybrid way and what hybrid working really is. So first things first, you must know that what's happening right now is a meeting. It's a virtual meeting, and virtual meetings should be a different topic. However, what you must know is that every virtual meeting needs an agenda. So for these 30 minutes today that I will spend with you, I have a mini agenda. So 3 focus topics that we will discuss together. Feel free to ask questions if you have any. I'm happy to respond to even the toughest ones. So how should we define hybrid work is the first one. What's the definition? So many companies talk about it. They have so many ideas about what it may mean for them, but what is it truly? Is there one honest definition that we can really talk about, or are there maybe multiple ones? Let's discover this together. Then we go towards the misconceptions, as I've said earlier, okay? Many of us, we already have experiences with some kind of flexible working to some extent. Let's take a look at our own biases, about our own perceptions, and what the world is saying about hybrid working. And let's check if that's actually true. And then last but not least, we will go to building a strong hybrid work culture. You know, I have to tell you that for many years, I've always heard, and I read different statements of different companies saying, we have a great office. In the office, we offer this and this and this and this, and this is our culture. Well, the most important thing to know is that an office is not a company culture, okay? This is one of the biggest misconceptions, I would already say. It is, and then obviously it doesn't really help us building a culture in a distributed team. So how to tackle it, how to tackle hybrid working, hold on tight and get ready. So, as I promised, first things first, we will go through the definition of hybrid work. So what is it? It seems like it's a bit of everything, but we have, I would say, 3 different ideas, 3 different approaches. The most common one is this one that companies are keeping their offices and they're saying, okay, you can work from home 2 or 3 times per week, okay? And that means we're a hybrid company. So let's stop for a moment. We must know one thing. Working from home and working remotely are 2 different things, okay? Let's take a look at it from this perspective. We have an umbrella. Imagine the umbrella, okay? This umbrella is called flexible working, okay? And under this umbrella, we have hybrid working, we have remote working. Under remote working, we have working from home, okay? We have working from co-working spaces. We can have a condensed working week, for example. We can have, a 4-day working week. We can have part-time work, freelancers. All this contributes to flexible working, okay? So now when we look at hybrid, and we already know that hybrid is supposed to be flexible, we have many options to choose from, okay? So hybrid working may mean that we have an office that our company is saying that they are keeping, okay? And then they allow us, that's the worst thing, but I'll tell you more about it in a minute. They allow us to work from home 2 or 3 days a week. And then eventually, if they don't know how to do it right, they call you back to the office. Like we're experiencing with tons of companies all around the world, unfortunately, that have just, I would say, lost the battle of common sense. Sorry to say it, but that's what it looks like. I'm a bit biased, you know. I'm just so passionate about flexible working. So you may be working sometimes from home, sometimes from the office, and companies call it hybrid, and that's okay. We can have a situation that we have one team member in our team working remotely, okay? So they are never in the office. They just work from somewhere. They are hired this way. And this already means that we have a hybrid team, okay? But we can also have companies that have satellite offices, for example. I worked with a company like this that had a headquarters in the UK and then 3 satellite offices across Europe with people that were able to attend these office spaces flexibly. That was also a hybrid company, okay? So every combination is really possible. That's what I'm trying to say. So there is no true definition of hybrid from a physical or virtual presence standpoint, okay? So here we can have different combinations. And what I always say when a company introduces hybrid working is to take a look at 3 angles. The first angle is what roles have to be in the office forever? I mean, imagine a security guard, a secretary, for example, okay, who welcomes guests, you know, clients. Well, that person has to be on site most probably, okay? Roles that can work conditionally in a remote manner, okay? So sometimes, I don't know, if you're an admin, you're responsible for payroll, for example, or whatever, or you're a salesperson, for example, and you need to meet clients. Sometimes you have to be in the office or you have to meet the clients physically, right? But sometimes you can also work remotely. So the conditional approach. And the third approach is like the third group of people is like people work fully remotely. So the combination that you want to make happen, it's all up to you. There's one thing though, it has to be wise. It has to be done wisely, because if it's not, then we are rushing into a major issue. And this is something that I have experienced, unfortunately, in companies all around the world, looking at their statements and how they're trying to figure it out, okay? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to look at hybrid working as a combination, as a win-win solution between the old normal and the new normal. So we know that our people, our employees, they want to work from home or they want to work remotely. So we say, well, we have no choice. So we agree, we say, yes, okay, that's possible. That's the trend. That's what the competitors do. We care about well-being, this and that, whatever. Okay, let's do it. But we won't let go of the office. So you will have to come to the office essentially. And what is happening? They're trying to connect the old normal with the new normal. So when you go to the office, you, for 2 days of the week, pretend like nothing ever happened. You're there, okay? You just work like a few years ago, and then you work from home, and it suddenly resembles, it's supposed to be flexible to some extent, but in the end of the day, it's kind of really not. The only thing you don't have to do is you don't have to commute, okay? And this is kind of not really an emergency setup that we were dealing with during the pandemic, because during the pandemic, we had working from home, but no flexibility. It was imposed on us, okay? So now when we look at combining the old normal with the new normal, it's not an intentional approach, okay? So we have to look at all the components of hybrid working to make it super intentional, okay? So now, you know, many companies ask me, okay, so how do we invite people back to the office? And I'm like, well, you'd rather ask me a question, how do we force people back to the office? Because you're looking for explanations, you know, for the people to, you know, ask them to actually visit the office from time to time. And I always say that when it's justified, when it makes sense, you don't have to convince anyone. I mean, essentially look at yourself, you know, if you want to go shopping to the mall, you want to meet a friend for coffee, you want to go to a restaurant, you want to go to the theater, you even want to go to an event, you know, that is on site, or to a conference, you really want to be there because you feel like you'll miss out on something important. So the same thing should be for offices, okay? So if you can structure your team this way, that your team can work together, collaborate, brainstorm, build relations so that it's justified that they actually go to the office rather than just, oh, okay, I'm just taking my laptop and I will be doing exactly the same things in the office as I used to do at home for the past few days. Well, then it's a bit of a nonsense, and then it's going to be an issue. So what I recommend is sit down with your team. You can maybe, if you're right now in the middle of implementing hybrid working, you can try to take a look at a very simple start, stop, continue approach. Okay, so what should we start doing as a hybrid team in terms of the flexibility? What should we stop? What should we continue? What's working well? And what are the reasons for us together to really be together? And how do we imagine our flexible working that is not done in the office? Okay, and you also must know one more thing, and I'll talk about it in a moment. It's that, you know, hybrid working isn't really just about the location, okay? It's not just about the location. It's about the entire approach towards working. It's about making our processes and procedures scalable and fit for flexible working. Look at onboarding, for example. We should automate whatever we can automate and combine it with the human touch, okay? So whenever you look at all your processes that you have in your company, think about it. Where can tools and where can technology actually help us, okay? To streamline processes better, to help the people do their best work, okay? Rather than having too many meetings and jumping on Zoom calls over and over again and then go to the office because this is the company policy that we have to be there twice a week. If we can't measure it, if we can't measure our productivity, if we can't measure the output, if we can't measure whether it makes sense and how we really do the deep work, administrative work, how do we do operational work, how we do brainstorming. If this is not streamlined in a very transparent way, productivity will go down. And I will tell you one more thing. Hybrid working isn't easy, but it's definitely worth it in terms of flexibility, but it has to be well designed. And so one of the issues that companies are mentioning and individuals are mentioning, and I actually felt it myself as well, is proximity bias. And I'm sure that if not all of you, at least the majority has felt this way. So proximity bias is the tendency to give preferential treatment to employees who are in the office, okay? And I have to tell you that when I've been working for years now with hybrid companies, and I was always the one who was remote, I felt like I had to fight to be heard, okay? Always, in most cases, you know, it was this way that I really had to make sure that I reach out to each and every single person individually, that I share, that I request, that I ask questions. And it was really tough. So proximity bias, if you're trying to fight it, that's great. I've been fighting it for a long time now, but it's really something that it's embedded, I would say, in our DNA. Because you must know that when human beings were cavemen, thousands of years ago, we associated ourselves with our surrounding, okay? So that gave us a sense of belonging. If we could see things, touch things, smell, feel things, we felt that gave us comfort, okay? We felt like we know this and we automatically trust, and, you know, and it's easier for us to function in such an environment, okay? So now, and then throughout the years, and now when we look at hybrid working, we have people who are not in the office by default, and based on all the working patterns that we've experienced throughout so many years, we rush into this proximity bias, okay? So we can obviously overcome it if we have, as I've mentioned, proper processes in place. How do we communicate? How do we share feedback? How do we deliver our goals, for example, okay? How do we communicate in the first place, okay? Only then we can fight proximity bias. And also, to give you an example, how proximity bias has been present in our lives for the past few years, especially during the past 3 years in most companies that have decided to go hybrid or remote from working in the office. It's too many meetings, having full calendars, okay? Because it's this way that if I see it during a meeting, which is maybe not really productive, and we have tons of these meetings, I'm trying to break this, I'm trying to make this proximity bias, it's happened, or maybe this way, proximity bias is happening, we're still executing it, so to say, with the tools, with the software, okay? Because instead of meeting in real life, we're meeting virtually, and let's meet, because we have to see each other to make things work, okay? So one of the crucial elements that we have to tackle to make hybrid working work is getting rid of proximity bias and building our processes this way that we're talking about true workplace flexibility rather than just a superficial win-win solution where we allow people to work from home, but because of proximity bias reasons, we're still asking them to come to the office. So please keep that in mind. So now it's time for the misconceptions. I said that I will share some misconceptions with you, and they're obviously very common. So the first one is that hybrid is the worst of both roles worlds. So it means that when we have when we have a role that is remote and we have a role that is that is in the office, if it's hybrid, it's probably the worst that can be in the end of the day, because we should make a decision, because it's going to be very difficult, you know, to make sure that we know what's going on in the end of the day. And we're having this feeling of being torn between two realities. And I have to say that it is not uncommon, and it happens within many organizations, that people feel torn in a way, because in the end of the day, they don't know what to expect. So also, when we talk about hybrid working, it's not this way that flexibility means that you have a fixed working schedule where you sit at home and someone is tracking your mouse moves, okay? And it happens in many companies that they're tracking mouse moves, and that there is this software installed right away. And people who are, I would say, quite creative, what they do is they connect their the mouse with the cable you know, to a fan, and then it's moving and everyone's happy. This is ridiculous, okay? So it doesn't mean about fooling, it's not about fooling anyone here about flexible working or hybrid working, but it's about making sure that when we work from home or when we work remotely, we know exactly what needs to be done, when, how can I get in touch with others? How do I communicate? How do we exchange information, for example? And then when I go to the office, I take care of the relations, okay, to be around people. But then again, it shouldn't be imposed. Why is it difficult? I would say it's difficult from a mindset perspective, because it's a completely different mindset to work based out on goals and also the deliverables, rather than clogging in, clogging out, opening the front door of an office. And why is it difficult? Although I'm saying it's a misconception, okay, that hybrid is really the worst, okay, between remote and in-office work, it's because it gives you this feeling of being torn if it's not implemented properly. Just like I've said, if you go to the office and you have this déjà vu feeling, okay, that you're opening the front door and closing the front door, okay, when you're leaving the office and this is your work, and then you suddenly work from home, you don't know how to connect it. So this is the reason, and I will mention this in the next slide, why all hybrid companies should act as remote first ones. And I'll tell you in a moment why, okay? So another one is that people need to be in the office to be engaged, okay? Well, the problem is that when people are in the office, we think that they're engaged because of proximity bias. Very simple, okay? It's our assumption again. So there are definitely different factors, like being in touch with others, being around the people, having the spirit, okay, of being connected. If you are around some people within the office, that is true. So now when you work alone, okay, and there is no one else around, it's sometimes tough, you know, it can feel tough for many people. I'm not saying no, but people can be engaged in an environment like this if it's very clear what the goals are, what the mission, what the vision is. Why are we here? Why am I here? What am I going to deliver? How does it contribute to the company's growth? And for this, when we talk about engagement, motivation, and engagement in distributed teams, I always recommend a methodology that is called OKRs, Objective Key Results, okay? Because it really shows each and every single individual how the work that they're doing on a daily basis, how it's connected with the team, and also how it's connected with the company. So then no matter if I am sometimes home or sometimes working from a cafe, or sometimes I go to the office, I understand my role, okay? No one needs to monitor me, supervise me 24/7, track my mouse moves, because I understand that when I deliver my work, when I'm working alone or I'm working remotely or working from home, okay, you know the difference by now, then when I meet with my peers, we can talk about it together. We can brainstorm to get closer to the mission, to the moonshot that we have established together with the entire team. And then the last one of the biggest misconceptions is that hybrid work negatively impacts company culture. I told you in the very beginning that company culture versus office perks, this is a misunderstanding, okay? So the fact that you're giving someone, I don't know, fruit, or you have a gym in the office, it doesn't really mean that this is part of your culture. It can be part of your culture though, but it's a perk, okay? It's not your culture itself. It's a perk, okay, that you're offering to people. If you think about building a culture, you have to think about the values of your company, how people live these values. So you see, what I do with my clients, for example, when we want to talk about the company culture and what people we want to join the team. I know that there's a big discussion around the culture fit. I believe in the culture fit myself, but I'll tell you how I understand the culture fit. I understand the culture fit this way, that we have a company, can be a hybrid, can be a remote company, a distributed company in general, and they have values. These values are tangible. These values can be expressed through people's behaviors, okay? So we may have values like, I don't know, compassion maybe, okay? Curiosity, okay? So the question is, how do people live these values on a daily basis, okay? How is it expressed? And I always design frameworks when you want talent, new people to join your team based on behavioral questions, okay? To get to know this person. What do you believe in? How do you behave? How do you interact with others, okay? What's your goal for your career, for your personal growth, okay? What do you think about the company's mission, the company's vision? You know, how do you live these values that are important to us, okay? And this is how we know that the people that join us, they understand who we are looking for. Okay, just one more thing, just one last thing to literally sum up very quickly. All right, so let me move on with my slideshow quickly. So hybrid culture, having a remote first mindset, then we have technology and a people-centric approach, okay? Hybrid is not about working sometimes from home, sometimes from the office. We're just not talking about the location, but we're talking about connecting technology, okay, with a people-centric approach. How does it help the people? How does our flexibility help the people? Also, working from home isn't an emergency. It's part of a scalable business solution, okay? And as I've mentioned just a few minutes ago, connect based on the values, mission, and the vision, not just when it comes to physical presence. If you do that, hybrid working will be very easy to tackle. I can guarantee this. Thank you very much. That's all from my perspective. So glad that I could share and sum up.
Thank you so much, Nadia. This was a great presentation. I absolutely love how much you emphasize the fact that, work from home isn't just something you do like in case of an emergency. It's not something that is just a reactive situation. It's absolutely something that's possible and can work really well for a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your expertise.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And sorry for the interruption. It's never happened, but it always has to be the first time. We're flexible working. We're ready for bugs like that. And we always make it work in the end of the day. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.